Well, it looks short. It looks like a thin read. It's a bit of a double take. I don't know. Got a phone call. Interrupted. Don't they know I'm lecturing? But Jeremy Butler's television stop. So, chapter 1 of that book is entitled, first part's entitled Introduction. Chapter 1, Television and Zero Degree Style. Okay, so when exploring through this book, that it's been a while since I read it, but deceptive, the length being deceptive, this is quite dense and fascinating, but essentially what I got out of the book itself was a reference when talking about zero degree style. So this is Butler speaking to Caldwell's zero degree style to see how effectively diegetic spaces may be constructed. So then I've got to go, then I go through to his citational endnote, and we're talking about John Caldwell, a previous scholar of media and television, and so now I'm well down the rabbit hole because I got to go to the library and see, do I have any work on Caldwell that would give me that direct definition? I don't know. Anyway, find myself picking up the television studies reader off the old bookshelf, and it does in fact have a chapter of Caldwell's. And lucky me, years ago, I even starred his name in the table of contents. So, Special Day happened to also star Jason Mattel, among several other names, right? So, lots of starring going on. A long time ago, my goodness, I trying to think of when I made all those marks. But go to the Caldwell chapter, check it out, and sure enough, not on the same topic, right? But that's okay. So then I go to the last resort, not the first resort if I'm going to research something, right? The last place I check because it's the easiest, and that would be the internet. So let's go see what we can find, Google Scholar, that sort of thing. And I did come across a piece of online scholarship from about John Caldwell's zero degree style from none other than Jeremy Butler, and I'd be more than happy to share that piece. It's very brief, but it's from one of the Media Commons websites, piece of videographic and written criticism of The Carmichael Show. But anyway, there is a long form explanation for it, basically all of chapter 1. If you read Butler's book, Zero Degree, am I saying it right? Zero Degree Criticism. That's not right. Zero Degree Style is referencing a style of presentation that is very straightforward. We talked about the mechanics of TV production, right? Those productive practices. And so the zero degree style would be very reduced. And that's why Butler uses a soap opera to analyze a clip from, because he's demonstrating the soap opera being a high volume production schedule needs low technical requirement setups. So to bring all this back to talking about Mattel's comparison between The Wire and Breaking Bad, The Wire is attempting a level of realism as drama. I think that's part of why some people would hear critics raving about it as the greatest show ever and all of this hype, and then they go watch it and then they're a little bit bored, right? They're a little like, what's happening here? This is taking forever to unfold. It's because there's a strategic intent at evoking realism. And I mean, it's a text that dozens and dozens and dozens of critics and scholars can give you all kinds of takeaways, but it's a show that's very technically minimalist. So it's one of those things where they're going to give you a certain level of subversive detail where you feel submerged into that setting or situation. Whereas Breaking Bad is much more over the top, even though it has these intimate moments. And I think this is where it can be deceptive, is there are examples time and time again where it goes to extremes in its storytelling, but because it's a small, intimate cast, and its stakes feel so close and familial, that it also simultaneously suggests a kind of, I don't know, intimate realism, maybe just because it's so devastating sometimes that there's a realism there. But Breaking Bad's technique he calls maximum degree style. And a great way to think about this is, I know many of you have sampled that text, if not watched the show in its entirety, but Breaking Bad often exhibits these fantastic camera angles and lens selections. Okay, so the lens itself in which the camera frames the world takes on inanimate object perspective. Okay, I can think of instances where the camera is sort of taking on the perspective of a laundry machine, washer or dryer. I think a dryer, sort of insinuating money laundering, something to that effect. You get low angles, the way it maybe paints the desert sky. You get the angle of something from close to the ground or far away or disconnected from the characters, right? It's disorienting on screen. They may even give you, I'd have to revisit the episode. My memory tells me, but I don't believe my own memory, that in the bottleneck episode Fly, that you even get a Fly perspective, but I could be mixing that up in my head with The Simpsons 22 short stories about Springfield, which was it's a monumental episode mentioned in one of our books, and I agree, it was something that blew me away as a kid watching reruns on syndication. So I would check in daily. It felt like for months and months, just waiting to see if it would be the 22 short stories about Springfield episode, because this was in the day before DVD box sets and definitely before, FXX streaming on the internet and all that sort of stuff. But that's just a phenomenal 22 minutes of storytelling. It's not even a half hour. What are we doing here? Got really confused earlier. I got a phone call from person X and disrupted our session here. That's what happens when we talk about spreadable media models. That's what happens when there's too much synchronicity, right? When everything's connected to everything else. You get alerts all over all devices, time and space. Another reason that the theater going experience is in decline. People can't sustain their imagination for 90 minutes to 2 hours. That we have to check. We have to check our phones every 10 minutes or something like that. It's awful. Mattel seems to often use two texts together to compare and contrast. Alias in 24, The Wire and Breaking Bad. Would you suggest using this approach in our analysis paper, or just sticking with one text? Perhaps not focusing on the entire paper, but bringing in an additional text to compare it with our text in focus? Yes! This could be a strong approach, particularly if you were having trouble figuring out how to analyze a text, if this is a little bit outside of your wheelhouse, or if you haven't had the same introductory comm courses yet where we work on developing those types of critical models a little more closely. A comparison and contrasting style of analysis could work between two texts. In fact, this is evaluative criticism. That's what Mattel labels it early on, and then kind of teases out through demonstration. But that alternative suggestion as well. You could use sub-examples. This is a strong direction. They could serve sub-examples supporting. These are functioning as supporting evidence, okay, to make certain types of claims. The claims and the evidence allowing or creating the support for your case or your argument, right? The persuasion you seek to make in the analysis paper. That is that's a great question to hang a to be continued on, and I'm gonna refill the coffee. It's getting a little cool, and we're gonna be right back with some more Q&A, asynchronous style.